Hello, everybody, and welcome into the 59th edition of Texas Longhorns Live. I'm your host, Matthew Miller. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Gerald Goodridge. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out what we're trying to build. And Texas is trying to build a damn good football team, and let's jump right into it. Derek Cooper, the recruitment and how it's going. So he was going to commit 2 days ago, guys, and he pushed it back to the 20th instead. He was seen wearing about 10 days before we thought he was going to decide Texas gear, all that decked out, talking to someone, and sources behind the scenes basically said, hey, yeah, he's interested, and they're starting to push. So now Texas is fully in the mix with Derek Cooper, and he decides in less than a week. So, Gerald, what do you like about Derek Cooper, and how do you think he would fit in that running back room?
Yeah, I've said it on this channel multiple times that part of my concern about the Texas running back room as it exists right now is their lack of a second pitch, right? Where I feel like every running back does very similar things where it's very heavy inside zone, very bruiser, very thick bodied. And that's not necessarily what Derek Cooper is. He can do some of that. I feel like he's an every down back in a lot of ways, but I also think he's got a little bit of the top end breakaway speed that I think the room is kind of missing right now. And so I think that's one of the things that he does. He's a playmaker. He's a guy who I think you could probably, as he grows a little bit, play on all 3-4 downs, right? Where he can, he can run, he can pass catch, and he can block. I think right now, as he comes in, even if he comes in next year and plays sparingly, I think he brings a little bit more explosiveness than what Texas has in the room right now. Because like I've said it multiple times, and it kind of started off with this, CJ Baxter, incredible running back, number one running back in his cycle at one point, but he's not necessarily the all state burner kind of guy. He's not the, turn on the Jets and go. That's not Trey Wisner. That's not Jared Gibson. That's not any of the guys in the room right now. And so for Texas to land a kid like Derek Cooper, who, and I'll be real, if it's an NIL deal, great, right? We've said it before. We said it again. If Texas feels like the juice is worth the squeeze, then they're going to pay it, right? And so in this situation, they feel like it's worth the squeeze. And so that's for Texas a big, big deal. And so again, I think the biggest thing that he brings, one, add some more momentum, an elite player from Florida. Love getting another running back from Florida. Keep the ties in there. That's something that Chad Scott is a Florida guy, so has those ties as well. But gets an elite running back, gets a second pitch, and keeps those prongs in Florida. Love it all.
Yeah, I agree. And this is something, Texas has been striking out on the trail. KJ Edwards struck out with him. He's going to Texas A&M. Javion Osborne, we thought he was going to go to Michigan, ended up at Notre Dame. Guys like that, we just haven't been in on. And there's always been something to me of we haven't really pushed either. And I think that's what you're seeing with Derek Cooper. You're seeing this final push here to get him to come to Texas. That is why he pushed this back. I think the 3 or 4 teams to look at. I think Florida State just thrown in there. I think it's going to come down to Miami, Georgia, Texas, and Ohio State. Texas and Ohio State have been pushing of late. And this is, like you said, I think this is a big NIL push. And for someone like this, I expect it to be. You're talking about a top 30 guy when you look at the 247 composite. You're talking about the number 2 athlete in the country, according to the 247 composite, 6'1", 205 pounds out of Chaminade, Florida. Really, really good football player and a guy that I think could play day one here at Texas. I also think in the reality, and this is all reality, you're going to push 2 guys out with this move. One, at least, in my opinion, 2 guys are probably going to end up transferring from this Texas team. Obviously, Trey Wisner and CJ Baxter could go to the NFL. I mean, CJ Baxter at this point isn't even cleared for contact, so it's hard for me to believe all of a sudden he's going to have a breakout year and want to go to the NFL. I think he sticks around. So that leaves you with a very crowded running back room if Derek Cooper does join, which is unfortunate, but it is a very talented, very crowded room. And guess what? Competition helps out a lot. It creates these dynamic, dynastic programs, and that's what Texas wants. So he'd be a gigantic fit in this Texas running back room. And I completely agree with you. He's listed as an athlete because he's kind of just an all-around good football player. And he's kind of what CJ Baxter was before he got injured. Plus, you add more top-end speed to him. That's what I kind of see when I watch his game. We'll see if CJ Baxter can recover. I hope he can because that room is missing it this year. But going forward, this guy would definitely bring it if he does join the Texas Longhorns.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we've talked about with the running back recruiting is that there was kind of going into this kind of news cycle a very high chance that all 5 scholarship running backs for Texas were back next year. Right? There's a very, very strong chance of that. And so that's part of the reason why I think running back recruiting has been a little weird. Same thing goes for wide receiver recruiting in some ways, that Texas is going to have very full room. So getting a guy like Derek Cooper, you're probably right. 1 or 2 guys are probably going to need to go somewhere else. And I'm with you. I think CJ Baxter is probably here for 2 years. Trey Wisner has a lot. I think he feels like he has a lot left in the tank, and I'm not going to argue with the kid. So if he wants to go somewhere else and thinks he can be an RB1 there, if you've seen him on TikTok, he says he's like that, right? So like he's the guy who I think can really, if he wants to, go and find some other place to play, or he stays around at Texas and one of the other guys behind him transfers. I don't know what the look is for Texas in the future, but bringing in a kid like Derek Cooper, again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, Texas needs another pitch in that room. And I think he's the kind of guy that can do that from day one.
And I think pushing for this type of player, not a Javion Osborne, a KJ Edwards, to me shows the concern of that room. I think Sark looks at that room and is like, we don't have that one guy here. We need that guy that, can get 25, 30 carries a game if it comes to it. Like, instead of, who's ever hot that night. That's kind of what we did last year, and it didn't work out. And I've said that. I've said we have to have a one guy, like your top one guy. We just don't have that. And I think Sark is making that clear with this push with Derek Cooper, because he's whatever service you want to look at, he's either the number 1 or number 2 running back. So if you're making a push for that guy, he's looking at the room and saying, I don't have that here. I need that here. And it creates a really dynamic backfield as well. Like Diabell's in the class. Imagine Diabell and Derek Cooper there. That's a very, very good 1-2 punch with Nick Townsend at the tight end position and the wide receivers on the outside. That's a very, very good offense to build on.
Yeah, and again, I think Texas is not going to want for skill players, but we've seen it before. Texas doesn't want to really go into the portal for a guy like this unless they absolutely have to, right? They would rather leave some of that portal stuff for the plug and play interior defensive lineman or those types of spots, where Texas would rather have a running back that they have on campus that they can develop in their own system, that can grow up with the group. And so I love this push, and I think for Texas to again land a kid like Derek Cooper. And again, we cannot overstate. And Texas landed a Samari Matthews from North Carolina, right? Landing a kid from Florida, continuing to widen the footprint. I don't think Texas will need to. Well, I say we'll need to go to Florida every year. Texas has done really well with running backs in Florida every year, but Texas doesn't need to get the entire class from the wide SEC footprint, but continuing those inroads in Florida, continuing his inroads in the Carolinas, in the Deep South, in Georgia, which will come up in just a second, right? Those things for Texas are huge because they're going to do well in the state of Texas as long as they're competitive, right? They're going to do well in California as long as they're competitive. Being able to go into Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, right? All of those places where there is elite talent at positions that, frankly, Texas and California don't produce as much is a big win for Texas.
100%. If you can cherry pick 1 or 2 recruits a cycle in each of those states, you're doing a really good job. And you got that. You got a top 10 player out of North Carolina and Samari Matthews. You'll get one of the 2 to 3 best players out of the state of Florida and Derek Cooper if you're able to land them. So, yeah, I completely agree. And when we talk about Tyler Atkinson, again, taking maybe the number 1 player out of the state of Georgia after you took one of the top 3 last year in Justice Terry. So completely agree. Expand the map as much as possible. And Texas has been able to do that. And I think that's also why some of these coaches were hired to do that. Kenny Baker, I think, is the reason you're able to do that. I think Chad Scott is the reason you're able to do that in the Carolinas, because he kind of recruits that area. That's why he was pretty successful at West Virginia. So overall, I completely agree with that. So that's a Derek Cooper recruitment. He will be making his decision July 20th from those 5 schools. In my opinion, again, Florida State just thrown in there. I'd be absolutely shocked if he went there, but I think those 4 are definitely neck and neck, guys. It's going to be tight. It's going to be very, very interesting. I really think it could come down to whoever has the best NIL offer at literally the last 10 minutes of that, and that's where he decides to go. So we'll see what happens there, but really exciting times. And this guy commits tomorrow live, announced 25 minutes ago, that he's going to commit live on the Pat McAfee show, which I think is the first time a commitment has done that. And he has, that type of pedigree to be able to do that. Tyler Atkinson will commit tomorrow between the 4 schools of Oregon, Clemson, Texas, and Georgia. Texas and Georgia, neck and neck, in my opinion. And before we got on here, literally 3 minutes before, Steve Wiltfong did put in a crystal ball for Texas. To me, that doesn't mean anything until, if that crystal ball would have came in 2 minutes before he decides to commit, I would have been all over it. I would have said, yeah, he's going to Texas. there's another 8 to 12 hours where this may mean nothing, Gerald.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of smoke for Tyler Atkinson coming to Texas. I think 247 had a couple of guys put in predictions as well for him to Texas. So the smoke is starting to gather for him coming to Texas, and I think that's a big win for the Longhorns. But like, just talk about him as a prospect. I don't want to like put too high of a pressure on this, but he's a guy who could come in and play day one, right? He's a guy who could come in and you'll see a drop off from Anthony Hill because Anthony Hill is a once in a lifetime kind of kid and he'll have 3 years of experience, but a freshman who could come in and be an impact linebacker instantly for Texas is about as succinct of a point as you could put on him. Go watch his tape, his junior tape. I purposefully did not watch his junior tape because I was convinced he was going to Georgia. I had it all in my head until I saw the Wolfong bomb come in, and then Hank South, the 247 Sports Texas writer, put in a pic just like literally I think 20 minutes ago about it. So like I decided to watch his tape this afternoon, and it's legit. The guy is a sideline to sideline defender. He can close in space. He can attack at the point of attack really well. Great run fits. Absolute thumper when he's coming downhill. He is like a four-tool linebacker. I don't know if that's a real term, but I'm making it one. Like sideline to sideline defender against the run, can run fit really well. Interior, can play the pass, and obviously he's going to find the quarterback and put a hurt on him. Like I love his aggression. I love how fast he plays. He honestly reminds me a lot of like late stage DeMarvion Overshone, where he's got a lot of range. He's got a lot of ability to make disruptive plays both along the edges and in the interior. I really like what he brings, and I think he's a guy, like I said, who can come in and play on day one. Anthony Hill, he's going to be vapors as soon as January, February time. So like enjoy every snap of him on defense this year. But I think Tyler Atkinson's a guy who could come in and fill those shoes, not completely, but ease some of the wound that will be left when Anthony Hill goes pro.
Well, and he's a versatile football player. We talk about that on the defensive side of the ball all the time. This guy can do a lot of the same things as like Trey Moore and Brad Spence, where they can come off the edge, but they can also play linebacker. He can do those things, and he can do it at an elite level. On Texas Football said something this morning that blew my mind. He has played 40 games of high school football. He has something like 450 tackles. Think about that real quick. Like that's that's absurd to be able to do that. And he's only played really 2.5 years in varsity. So, I mean, it's ridiculous that he's this good already. This is legitimate. He's going to be in the NFL. I don't know where he's going to go. If he goes to Georgia, he'll be in the NFL. He goes to Texas, he'll be in the NFL. He could go to Boise State, and guess what? He's going to should go in the NFL. It doesn't really matter. He's one of those kids. I think there's about 10 to 15 of them every recruitment process where they could choose any school on the map. They could just point to it. And if they go there, they're going to be in the NFL. And he's one of those guys. So if you can get one of those guys, you go all in. And I think that's what Texas has done. You know, Sark every year has 1 to 2 guys that he's like, we need this guy. We're circling him. We're putting full court press on. We're putting full court NIL on him, and we're going all in. This is this guy this cycle. I think Derek Cooper might be that guy also, but for sure, this is the number one prospect, in my opinion, on their board, the way they've handled this.
Yeah, and you know, you and I have said it on this channel. We said it after the Felix Ojo thing happened. Like when Texas and I'll just say it, like a lot of the conversation around this has been NIL and Texas's or whoever's ability to meet the price tag. And we've said it before, and anybody that knows what they're talking about would say the same thing. When you have a player like this, it's worth, and you feel like it's worth the bag, Texas is going to pay it, right? If Texas thinks it's worth the NIL contract or whatever it might be, they're going to pay it. And they're also willing to make payments to the other players. They're like, okay, this freshman's coming in and getting this number. You're going to need to get us right too, right? So like, this is one of those players that it's worth that level of consternation for Texas to have to deal with the re-recruiting of your own guys and to deal with all the contractual things that come with it. When Texas wants, when there's a player that Texas feels like it has to have, and there's a price tag attached to it, I don't feel like Texas is going to lose those. Again, the Felix Ojo thing, we've talked about it before, and I'm not going to relitigate it, but like Texas wasn't willing to pay that price tag for a guy who's going to sit for 2 years, right? Tyler Atkinson is going to come in and play next year. Texas is willing to pay that price tag for that kind of kid.
Yeah, 100%. I think the only guy, like I said, that Sark has lost that he really wanted full court press was DeCorian Moore. That was the only guy we went all in for. And guess what? He chose Oregon, and I have nothing wrong with that. We went band for band with Oregon. We were right there money-wise. We were right there recruiting-wise. We went full court press. He just didn't want to come to Texas, and that's fine. But everyone else that Sark's been like full court press, all NIL on the table. We need you. We want you. You're going to play right away. We've gotten Anthony Hill is one of those guys. Colin Simmons is one of those guys. Arch Manning is one of those guys. We've gotten those guys, and clearly that is Tyler Atkinson, and I completely agree. And Jerry Hamilton, who's been doing this for a long time, guys, said this is the closest thing he's seen to Derek Johnson. If you can get another Derek Johnson on this football team, you pay whatever you can, because that guy was an all-pro for the Kansas City Chiefs. He was an all Big 12, whatever player for Texas. He's a Hall of Fame player at the University of Texas. You pay whatever you have to for a day one player like that.
Yeah, there is, again, I don't know another way to say it, right? If it is a money situation and Texas wants a player, they think it's worth the price tag, they're going to pay it, and they're going to find a way to pay it. And I have zero doubts about that. And I'm fine with putting that out in Front Street, right? And yeah, we each got a comment in the chat from Jay Soul that Wilt Vong just dropped the bomb. Yeah, we've got Hank South from 247 also put in his pick. So I'm feeling pretty confident about it. But again, I felt confident about other things, and it didn't work out. But yeah, I'm pretty confident in it. But, I think there is, again, for Texas, this is one of those must-win recruitments. And frankly, and I'll say it, maybe losing out on some of those other kids that Texas didn't quite feel were at the price tag allowed them to reallocate some funds and get back in this one, right? There is a lot of silver lining to that cloud.
No, 100%. Victor, we cannot be saying this. It is not a done deal. It's not even a done deal till he signs. Like, we have a long, long way to. Can't be saying it's a done deal in July.
We said that about a certain tackle, and that we know how that worked out.
Yeah, so it's far from a done deal. Even if which I think he will at this point. I think it's probably 75-25. He's going to go to Texas tomorrow, but that doesn't mean in December he's going to sign with Texas, and it doesn't mean he ever shows up on the 40 acres until he steps foot in Texas in the weight room. It's not done. He took the big bag, fellas. Hey. We said when the big bag is dropped and Texas drops the big bag, there's only one guy that said no. So can't hate him for it.
It's the game is I could say it 1,001 ways, right? If we're going to do capitalism in college football, then let's do capitalism in college football. And that's what this is, right? I wasn't mad when Texas Tech went out and outbid Texas for Felix Ojo. I'm not going to be mad when that happens, right? You do not get mad when your team gets outspent, right? You don't get mad at the person that outspent them. Get mad at your team for not spending it if you feel like the player is worth it. But we've said it, Matthew and I said it after Felix Ojo. I had a conversation with Eric Henry at 247, right? There are players that Texas and Steve Sarkisian think are worth the price tag, right? And Tyler Atkinson clearly is a kid that Texas feels like is worth the price tag. And I don't think that's bad to say it. We're the era that we're in is just part and parcel of the recruiting process. NIL is not going away. It's part of what is happening, and it's part of the recruitment. So Tyler Atkinson, if you got paid, good job, big fella. You deserve it.
100%. And no, I agree, Jay. So I believe we were waiting for him to drop the big bag and not pay the other recruits. Yeah, I agree, because there is a budget. Even before the revenue sharing and all that, there was still a budget. Like, I don't think there's any world where Texas was going to drop that amount of money for Felix Ojo, because they looked at their offensive line class. They looked at who's in the room already, and they said, we don't need him for that amount of money. So they decided Tyler Atkinson, we do need him, because again, Anthony Hill's gone after this year. So there's a big hole and void there that he can fill, and he'll fill beautifully. I actually think day one, like if you're comparing Anthony Hill day one to Tyler Atkinson day one, I do think Tyler Atkinson's a more ready college football player than Anthony Hill was. Anthony Hill was like, basically, here, we'll throw you out there. You just go cause chaos. Yeah, go cause chaos. Have some fun. And I think the best of that was the Alabama game. And then there were some times where he just looked completely lost in other games. Oklahoma game, I think, was an example of that, where they kind of fooled him in that game. But really, really good football player. And yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier, Victor. Trending very well for Derek Cooper. We'll see. No one's crystal balled that. It may be a little bit too early. And there's four teams are going hot and heavy right now for Derek Cooper. There's really only one other team that was all in on Tyler Atkinson, and that was Georgia. And they may have some money drying up because they're killing it right now. They're getting everyone under the sun. I mean, James Johnson went there. They've had a couple other guys get there. So it's going to be very interesting. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps us out. Also, guys, if you know anybody that would like to sponsor the show, please help us find someone to sponsor this show or any show on the network. You can email us at sponsorships at vocfb.com today to help us find any sponsor. Like I said, for any show, please do that. Get your brand, personal product, or business to the next level. Check out our experience with the Win Agency on the screen with the Michigan Channel. They've been, I think, with Michigan Channel for like a year now, guys. So they really like it. And again, at sponsorships at vocfb.com today. We really appreciate that. Also, guys, go check out the Instagram page at the Voice of, or the Voice of College Football. Just type in Voice of College Football on Instagram. It'll pop right up. Give it a follow. If that is going to have a lot of content coming up, especially because the season, is right around the corner. We're like 5 weeks away at this point. So please go check that out as well. The next topic we're going to talk about, top 5 players who need to improve for Texas. Pretty open-ended. I didn't say there was any stipulations on how long they had to play for Texas. So Gerald, I'll let you start out. Who's your number 5? Oh, you're muted. There you go.
I muted during the ad because I needed to get a drink of water.
Okay.
So my number 5 player for Texas is actually Jarrett Gibson. I know he's probably not one that you expected on the list, but I think Jarrett Gibson is a kid who played a lot and had a heavy workload early in the season last year, and then had some fumble issues and saw his production dry up because of that. And I think if Texas is going to be able to shore up some of their issues, especially in the red zone and short yardage situations, Jarrett Gibson's going to need to say something about that, right? He is that prototypical short yardage, like stick your nose in there and get 3 yards, fall forward for 3 yards kind of player. And I think for Texas to be who they are, and like you said, CJ Baxter is not cleared for full contact at this point. Again, it's July 14th, so we've got plenty of time before the season. But ultimately, if Texas is going to need and keep him healthy, right, because he's coming off of a knee injury, and you've got Christian Clark who's coming off an Achilles. And as much as I love Trey Wisner, and again, I feel like we get a rep for dogging on Trey Wisner. He's not your inside the tackle short yardage back. He's just not, right? And so if you've got a still banged up CJ Baxter, you've got Trey Wisner, who's not going to be the guy to bang inside the tackles. Jarrett Gibson really needs to figure out how to hold on to the ball for Texas to hopefully, now the offensive line will have something to say about it, but Texas being able to get that 2 yards. I'd have to throw a toss at Caleb downside of the field in the red zone. That's a Jarrett Gibson. And I think he's a guy, if he can develop and if he can really hold on to the ball, Texas has a lot of improvement that can come in the short yardage game.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. For me, it was just too hard to pick a running back out of that room, especially the guy I think is probably the second most talented guy on the roster is Christian Clark, but he's coming back from injury. So I didn't include running backs on this. Number 5 for me is Alex January. I think Alex January is a good football player, and he showed that, I thought, down the stretch of last season. But we need someone that's homegrown to step up in that room, because that will be a point that other teams will look at and say, hey, listen, they can't develop their own guys really. Because let's be honest here, all these guys that went to the NFL, they were inherited. They were inherited from the Tom Herman era. None of these guys were recruited. So really none of the recruits under Sark have developed yet. And if Alex January doesn't, they're going to say, they have to either inherit that person or go get that person in the portal. So I think he needs to have a really good season. I think he will. He was talked about all last spring. That everyone said, hey, look at Colin Simmons. And other people were like, yeah, what about that other Duncanville kid? He's doing a really good job as well. I think Alex January needs to improve, and I think he's going to have a breakout season.
Yeah, he's a guy who I think Texas needs to have a breakout season. And I think they're going to have to moneyball this defensive tackle position. I think it's going to be, a lot of different. That's no shot at Alex January. He's a sophomore, right? True sophomore. So he's 19, 20-ish coming in there. There's a difference between a 22, 23-year-old and a 20-year-old's body. It's just kind of how physiology works. So yeah, I think he's a guy who absolutely will have a lot to say if he can develop. So I'm going to stay in that vein. And I think Ethan Burke is a guy who needs to get better. Not that he's not good. Not that I don't think Ethan Burke is a solid player. But what we saw last year with the edges is that offenses had to pick their poison, right? Are you going to put assets towards Colin Simmons? Are you going to put assets towards Trey Moore? Trey Moore is now moving back, it looks like, to linebacker rather than playing a more traditional hand in the dirt edge. And so if you can have a guy like Ethan Burke or maybe Colton Vasek, I'm not sure who, probably Ethan Burke. If you have a guy like Ethan Burke, that can become a nuisance along the edge. That can become a guy who's going to, cause offenses to have to pay him attention, then that frees up the rest of the defense, especially Colin Simmons, who is an all-world kind of guy at the edge, right? If Ethan Burke can be a guy who they have to keep a running back in, offense is going to have to start picking their poison again. And Ethan Burke is a guy who can really open things up for this edge rush and make this defense elite yet again.
No, I agree. It's funny. I have number 4 as Ethan Burke as well. So we completely agree on that. And we'll get to your comments, guys, at the end. I see Gilbo needs to improve as well. Yeah, I don't have him on the list.
He's on my list.
Yeah, okay, well, we can talk about him when we get there, but I agree with Ethan Burke. I have an issue with this. So Barron Sorrell got a lot of hate for whatever reason from the Texas fan base. Not from me. I loved him. I think he was an underrated player for Texas.
Yeah.
Really good at setting the edge, especially in the run game. He was a fantastic against the run game. Ethan Burke is basically Barron Sorrell, but gets none of the hate. Like, I hear no one say, you know what, Ethan Burke hasn't lived up to what we thought he'd be. He's basically the same player. He actually might be a little bit worse. So I don't understand that personally, but hey, I think Ethan Burke doesn't need to improve. He's still a really good football player. He'll play in the NFL, but I don't think he would get drafted as high right now as Barron Sorrell. I believe Barron Sorrell was a 3rd round pick. Right now, I think Ethan Burke would probably be about a 4th or 5th round pick, honestly.
I don't even know if I'd go that high at him at this point, but I think again, people are going to miss Barron Sorrell. I was a big Barron Sorrell fan. I love the way he played, especially like on the backside of plays. It's an underappreciated thing he did, setting the edge along the backside. Teams were not cutting back on him.
No, I mean, that's why he got drafted. He's immovable against the run. He's fantastic against the run. Never gave up on plays. He's not going to be used as a pass rusher. That's not what he is. He's like a 3 to 4 sack guy that's really good against the run in the NFL. That's what he is.
100%. And that's what Texas needed.
100%. Number 3 for me, Devon Campbell. I don't think Devon Campbell has lived up to the hype at all from where he was recruited. Again, people got on Quinn Ewers and being like, well, he hasn't lived up to the hype. Devon Campbell hasn't even come anywhere near the hype he was out of high school. Number 1 rated interior offensive lineman. I think he might have been the number 1 rated of like the past half decade, and he has not lived up to that. Like out of our starting offensive linemen, those 5 guys, he came back for a reason. Like every one of those guys other than Jake Majors didn't get drafted. I don't know if Devon Campbell would have got drafted. He might have got drafted off of measurables in high school because they do that sometimes. But that's the only reason. He has not lived up to the hype. So I need a contract type season out of Devon Campbell this year.
I have him on my list as well, but a little higher. So I'm going to hold off on that. My next 2 are going to seem repetitive, but I think the first one, my number 3 is Manny Muhammad. And I think Victor in the chat said that as well. I think Manny Muhammad is a guy who had really high expectations of himself and of Texas last year, or Texas fans had of him last year, and he regressed a bit. And I think Texas is going to be playing a lot of teams that have elite pass catchers. I think he's going to need to be a lockdown. We're going to need to see Muhammad Island come back and flourish because he was some of that his freshman year. He was that guy who was a lockdown kind of guy. He could lock down a side of the field. And I absolutely think Texas needs that from him with the things that they're recycling in the secondary. I think Manny Muhammad is a guy who probably is due for a year. He's got all of the measurables. He's got all of the things that you want between or with a defender, but it's just something happened last year. I'm not sure what it was. If it was a confidence thing, if it was a motivation thing, I'm not sure what it was, but he was not quite as effective as he was his freshman year.
No, I agree. And I have him a little bit higher. That was your number 3, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So my number 2 is Ryan Wingo. I think Ryan Wingo needs to become the guy that, we expected when he was coming to Texas. I didn't expect him to pop off his freshman year. This is the year I expected him to pop off. So I guess he just needs to be who I expected him to be, which is, I said this, might have been a hot take, but I think he's the best wide receiver to step on campus since Roy Williams. That's how talented I think Ryan Wingo is. So can he hit that 1,000-yard mark? I think that he should be able to do that in this offense because I think Arch is going to be able to hit the plays down the field that will get him those chunk yardage that he needs. And we've seen the ability in open space. I think he's going to be able to create yards after catch, but are they going to be able to hit him down the field? Is he able to bring those in? We'll have to see. We need someone to step up in that room as well to become that alpha guy because right now we don't have one. We really... we thought Isaiah Bond was going to be that guy at the beginning of the year, so we thought we had one. It turned out to be Matthew Golden. This year, we really don't know. Like, no one knows. Some people say DeAndre Moore. Some people say Ryan Wingo. Some people say we're not going to have one. It's going to be by committee. So I do think we need a bona fide number 1 guy, and I think that needs to be Ryan Wingo. So I have him at number 2.
Yeah, my honorable mentions, like my six on the board. I literally put in my notes, pick any wide receiver, because I think somebody in that room has to step up and be the dude, right? Texas has had a dude. This is an offense that really thrives on having a dude. So I'm with you there. So my number 2 guy is Jalen Gilbo, right? I think that's why it's repetitive with my last pick, because and I think Jalen Gilbo is a really, really talented defender, but the shoes he's stepping into are massive, right? Jahdae Barron is going to be a guy who's hard to replace. Period. End of sentence. Your defense is not as good as it can be when you have to replace a guy like Jahdae Barron. I've been banging the drum for Jahdae Barron for 4 years now, because I thought he was the most slept on defender in the country for multiple years, and last year proved that, right? But now Jalen Gilbo, who's a guy who has a very similar skill set, who has a very similar kind of swagger and attitude about him, who's going to step into that role. And if he can have one really good year in that spot, that's an NFL contract for him. He's a guy who I think can come, and he's got the body that they like in the NFL. He's got that skill set that they like. He can support the run, and he can play against the pass as well. He's very aggressive, likes to hit, doesn't shy away from contact. If he can have a year that I think we all think he's capable of, this Texas defense is going to be nasty yet again. It's a big win for Texas, and it's a big win for him, because I think he will hear his name called early if he can have. It doesn't need to be the Thorpe Award win. He doesn't need to be everything that Jahdae Barron was a year ago, but if we can get 65-70% of what Jahdae Barron was out of Jalen Gilbo, I think this Texas defense is going to be very, very good.
No, I agree. And yeah, it's weird. I don't know who's going to be cornerback 2. I don't think you can really slide him back in, because I think Jelani McDonald's going to be the nickel. I said this way before that even they switched that too. Like, he just fits nickel. Like, he's perfect for the nickel back position. Yeah. He's like a mini Jade. He loves to lay the wood. He's really good against the run. He can move sideline to sideline and in space pretty well. So I don't think you can move Jalen Gilbo back to the nickel. So he's going to have to win the job outside to be able to get big playing time. And I don't know if he can do that because of Kobe Black. So we'll have to see. Number 1 for me is Malik Muhammad. You need a number 1 bona fide cornerback. That's why I have Ryan Wingo and Malik Muhammad, because you need a number 1 wide receiver in the Sark system. You need that you can go to consistently. You need a number 1 cornerback. And hopefully we can have that. We saw when we didn't have that, guys, with Ryan Watts on the outside and Terrence Brooks, like 2 okay cornerbacks. And guess what happened? Michael Penix in the college football playoff torched us. I'm not saying anyone on our schedule is capable of that. I don't know. The only one I can think of is DJ Lagway, honestly. That'd be pretty interesting if you have okay cornerbacks, not anyone great out there. And I don't even need him to be great. Can he be year 1 Malik Muhammad? Can he be he was the 2nd highest rated cornerback in the Big 12 according to PFF. Can he be that? That's what I'm asking for. I'm not asking to make this jump to be first team all SEC. Can you be third team all SEC? If you're third team all SEC, I think Texas has a really successful season.
Yeah, I mean, I've already said that. I think Manny Muhammad, if he can be more of his freshman year, then I think Texas is fine. My number 1, I said it already, DJ Campbell. DJ Campbell is a guy who I had very high hopes for. I was really in love with DJ Campbell coming out of high school. I went into it with my eyes wide open, though, because of the offense he plays in high school. He was, was a very run heavy. He would need to develop a lot in his pass settings. But just you look at that guy. He's a first off the bus kind of guy. He's the guy who is everything you want from a physical specimen at an interior offensive lineman. Everything you want, but just something hasn't clicked, and I'm not sure what it is, right? I don't know if it's a processing speed thing. I don't know if it's just a want to thing. I don't know if he's one of those guys that used to have a bad rep at Texas, where they get to Texas and then they kind of just coast. I don't know what that is. I don't think those guys last in this culture, so I'm not sure what it is, but he's really struggled with his eye discipline. He's really struggled with finding work when he doesn't have somebody across the face from him in pass protection. He's a guy who I really think should have and could have been out and gone this year if he had lived up to his potential, because we see Kelvin Banks, who was also a 5-star lineman in that class, gone to the NFL, right? DJ Campbell, this is your year, man. This is your year to make yourself the alpha dog in that room. This is your year to make yourself a national name and to get your name called on Sundays, because if he continues to play like he has for these last several years, he might get drafted late off of measurables, but he's a guy who should be one of the top, no doubt, interior offensive linemen on the board. They don't take guards in the first round generally, unless they're like generational kind of guys, but he should be a second, third kind of round offensive lineman that teams are clamoring and chomping at the bit to have, and he just hasn't lived up to that. And it's been really disappointing for somebody who's a big fan of his. So I want this for him as much as I want it for myself, right? I want him to have the success that I know he's capable of. Like, I want DJ Campbell to be that dude.
No, I agree. And that's the thing too, when you think about Kyle Flood here, he's developed the tackles very well. The guards to center position has been okay. It hasn't, listen, it's way better than we had before, but this is a guy that we definitely need to take that step forward and be that second, third round pick. Hell, be a first round pick if possible, because if you are that generational type dude, you see Zach Martin getting drafted as like a top 10 pick. Guys like that play forever, do a really good job. Quentin Nelson as well. So maybe he can be that guy. I don't know. He's inconsistent. That's what it is. You'll see some plays like, damn, that's a really good play. And then you'll be like, okay, what is going on here? I mean, he got replaced for Cole Hudson in games last year, guys. Like, let's be honest here. There are games where he did not play that well. So consistency, let's see if he can, do that this year. But that's our top 5. Let us know in the comments who are your top 5 players that need to improve for Texas to have a really good season. Victor's been dropping some names, and I agree. I think Gilbo, for me, would definitely be among my top 7 or 8. Someone at that corner 2 position has to take that bull by the horns and just be a good football player out there. I'm not asking for all SEC type guy, but can you be a good football player out there, not get beat, not be a liability, the guy that gets picked on all the time?
Yeah, it's that defensive back room. There's so much talent at corner. There's so much talent at safety. I just don't know what any of them are going to do. Victor says in the chat, Leifau needs to be better. I agree there. I think Leifau is a guy who, he had a longer development curve coming into Texas. And I think he has been really good against the run. I think, and that's going to be, one of Texas's Achilles heels this year is linebackers and pass coverage, because as much as I love Anthony Hill, he's also been a bit of a liability there. So I think they both have an opportunity to grow and develop there. Leifau is a guy who he has an incredible athletic motor. He's got incredible athleticism about him. Again, I'm not sure what has been the issue for him. He hasn't really had to be called on a ton. So, this is going to be a second year as the guy. So I'm curious to see what he develops into. I'm with you, Victor.
I will say though, Sark, without being asked the question, he just asked who was like the room that improved or impressed you the most, and he said the linebacker room. So I mean, that tells me a lot about that room, and overall, I think we'll be pretty good in there. So I'm not really super concerned there, because they've been cross training Trey Moore and Brad Spence as well. So if Leifau isn't good enough, they'll just go with one of those 2 guys as well. And Leifau down the stretch, I thought played really, really good football.
Yeah,
and that's the
I think there were spots. I think there were spots where honestly he looked better than Anthony Hill in some spots, where Anthony Hill, again, gets lost in pass coverage sometimes. I think Leifau had some plays where I chat with some other guys on Saturdays during the games. My friend Daniel, who played offensive line at UAB, and he and I love Leifau and his ability to fill the run. When he's good, he's really good. You see flashes of it. You see opportunities for him to improve on it. But I think he's a guy who, if we get closer to the ceiling more often from him, then I think this defense is going to be in a good spot.
No, I agree. Let's hit on this, because I think it's a super fun topic, especially for the offseason. Texas all-quarter century team, obviously 25 years down. So let's hit on this. Gerald, I think quarterback is pretty easy. I'll let you go. You're 3 or 2, whatever, how many you did, 2 or 3 quarterbacks to go on this team.
Yeah, I think the 2 obvious answers, right, are Vince Young and Colt McCoy. There's no 2 other names in Texas football that have. I think if Quinn had completed either of those passes in the fourth quarter of the semifinal games and gotten to play for a national championship, we'd be having a separate conversation. We'd have another conversation about Quinn Ewers, because I think we underappreciated Quinn Ewers. But there's no other names. I think Vince Young and Colt McCoy.
No, I agree. Running back is interesting, because I think you can, in my opinion, you can't just go like 4 or 5 deep here. I think it's 2 for basically every position other than wide receiver, obviously, if you want to go 3 or 4. So who are your 2? Because I think I know my 2, but who are your 2?
This is tough, because Ricky played before the quarter century mark, so it's hard to include him. As someone who was on campus and got to watch him play live, Cedric Benson is probably my number 1. I am a massive, massive fan of Cedric Benson. God rest his soul. I don't think people understand how revolutionary it was for a guy to come on campus as a freshman and just be the dude and then get better and then get better and then get better. And then his senior year, he is, an elite guy, a number one guy, first round pick at running back. So Cedric Benson is my number one guy. The number two spot is tougher for me, but I think Jamal Charles is the guy I have to go with there because, again, he came in, he was part of that national championship team. He was kind of a gadget player on that team and then turned into a really, really solid running back. Texas, there was a streak where Texas lost its 1,000-yard running back streak, and Jamal Charles was the one to reestablish it. So my two, Cedric Benson, Jamal Charles.
Okay, we're the same. Cedric Benson, Jamal Charles. Wide receiver, I'm going to go Roy Williams. Obviously, that's number one. Number two is Jordan Shipley. I think those two have to be in your top three. Then I think it's open for discussion between Lima Sweet, Xavier Worthy. I think that's really where the discussion ends. I'm going to go with Xavier Worthy there, but if someone, Lima Sweet's like my favorite Texas Longhorn of all time, but I'm being realistic about this. I think Xavier Worthy is a better wide receiver. I also think it'd be pretty nasty with Xavier Worthy and Roy Williams on the outside with Jordan Shipley in the slot. I think that'd be a pretty nasty trio of wide receivers. So those would be my three.
Yeah, it's hard to go against Roy and Jordan and not Jordan Whittington. I'm just blanking on his name.
Jordan Shipley.
Jordan Shipley. I couldn't get Whittington out of my head because he just hard launched a relationship with Logan Eggleston on Instagram, by the way. If you follow Texas athletes and their romances, he and Logan Eggleston are apparently a thing now. But yeah, I think Williams and Shipley are your number one and number two. For me, this is probably a nostalgia pick, but I think I am a huge Quan Cosby fan. I think Cosby statistically probably isn't one of those guys when you think about, writing the story of Texas football for the last 25 years. It's hard for me not to include Quan Cosby in that conversation. He's a guy who has the most consequential pass interference call in Texas history because he got interfered on a play that extended the drive for a national championship. He is the guy who dove in for a touchdown in the win over Ohio State in the bowl game. Quan Cosby, a culture guy. You have the gif of him blowing up the Oklahoma defender. So like when you talk, like for me, when I think about these like quarter century teams, like these all-time teams, I always think about like, who do you have to include in the conversation to tell the story of the last 25 years? And I think it's hard to tell the story of Texas football post 2000 without Quan Cosby.
I don't hate that. Now, tight end to me is hard. I think, again, we have to go two. David Thomas is one. And then I think it's open for discussion between Jatavian Sanders, Gunnar Helm, and Jermichael Finley. I think those are the other three that you can discuss. So who would you go with in that other spot?
I think because of longevity, I think Jermichael Finley did it more times than I think Jatavian Sanders and Gunnar Helm. I think if you look at like height of their year, then maybe I'd probably go. I think if I had to rank them, I'd go Finley, Helm, and then Sanders would probably be my 1, 2, 3. Jatavian Sanders' inability to block people on the edge really still pisses me off to this day. So I think Jermichael Finley is a guy who changed the face of tight ends at the University of Texas. My Kyle and I, my co-host on our podcast, have been calling for the curse of Jermichael Finley to be broken for years because up until Jatavian Sanders, Texas really hadn't had a good tight end like that in a long time. And no shots at, the guys like, K Brewer or whoever it might be. But I think for me, it's Jermichael Finley.
I don't disagree. I think it's David Thomas, Jermichael Finley. So offensive line, I'll let you hit this. You're a big trenches guy. Who are your 5 offensive linemen?
Oh man, this is probably Casey Studdard is a guy who I think has to be on the list. I think you have to have. I'm a Chris Hall guy at center. Chris Hall was Colt McCoy's center. You've got
even after that Big 12 championship game where that interior got absolutely destroyed.
Ndamukong Suh is a completely you can't fault anybody for getting destroyed by one of the best defensive tackles of the last 30, 40 years, probably.
Yeah.
You got Trey Newton, not Trey Newton. Justin Blaylock's a guy in the interior I really like. I think Trey Newton's older brother. I can't remember his first name, but Big Newton, he was a tackle on the other side. So
was it Chris?
That's my grouping. Not Chris, I can't think of the first name. But that's my group. Basically the 2005 offensive line plus Kelvin Banks would probably be a good, if you say that, I'm probably pretty okay with it.
Yeah, the only other discussion I have is Mike Williams. Like, he was the highest rated offensive lineman or drafted offensive lineman before Kelvin Banks. So I think you'd have to go with him at one of the guard positions. Casey Studdard at the other guard position. Kelvin Banks at left tackle. Justin Blaylock, whether you want to throw him, I think you put him at right tackle. I think center is up for discussion. I think that's the one position. I mean, if you wanted to put Jake Majors in that discussion, I'm not going to hate it because it's kind of open. But I think those four have to be on the offensive line in some way. Center position's up for interpretation, in my opinion. So let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. Edge position. I did some research, and a lot of people didn't have this. Sergio Kindle has to be on this team. I have to put this dude on this team. He was a game record. I don't understand how. I looked at other people's lists. I'm like, how are you not putting Sergio Kindle on the list? Corey Redding, obviously, Jackson Jeffcoat, Tim Crowder, Alex Okafor, other guys on the list. I think Sergio Kindle starts on my all-quarter center team at least.
Maybe this is my age or my bias, but like basically, if you give me the guys from the 08-09 teams, you give me Brian Arakpo and Sergio Kindle, I don't argue with you. I think those are two of the best edges to ever play at the University of Texas. I think Sergio Kindle is a guy who, if he played in 2018 instead of 2008, he is an all-world kind of guy. He was like the prototype for these edges like Colin Simmons now, right? Where he's kind of that middle ground of edges are getting a little more athletic, offenses are getting a little more wide open, so you need a faster, twitchier guy on the edge. Teams just didn't know like the NFL didn't really know what to do with him. If he gets drafted again, like in 2018 instead of 2008, he is a first round pick. He's an all NFL kind of guy. He had off field issues and crashing cars and falling downstairs and stuff like that. Like he was, I think, the prototype for the modern defensive edge kind of guy.
Yeah, honestly,
if you give me Rack and Kindle.
Yeah, I was gonna say Arakpo, Kindle, Casey Hampton, and if you give me Casey Hampton, Byron Murphy, you're not running versus that team. And then if you gotta, get back to pass, all those guys can pass rush. Like to me, I think that might be my 4, honestly.
Yeah, Casey Hampton falls in that Ricky Williams. Like, did he play late enough into the 2000s for it to qualify? But he's a guy who it's hard to. I'm also I'm blanking on his Frank Okam's another guy that I really love. He's now coaching, I think, for the Texans. Rod Wright is another guy that I think if you put him in this conversation, I'm not mad about it. If Casey Hampton doesn't qualify, right? Because I think his last year at Texas was 2000. So it's a little iffy, right? But I'll let you have it. And, so I think probably Rod Wright, Frank Okam, Casey Hampton, any of those guys. This is just me naming dudes now, which is my favorite thing to do.
Corey Redding as well, obviously a really good player in the NFL. So Tavondre Sweat, even I think would qualify in this conversation. Really good player. Alfred Collins last year was really good. Like he was fantastic last year. But let's move on to middle linebacker, Derek Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, move on. Like Derek Johnson's the guy. There's no two ways around it. Derek Johnson's the guy.
And then cornerback, I think is a pretty interesting conversation with Jahdae Barron, Nathan Vasher, Aaron Ross. I mean, where do you go here?
Jammer.
Yeah, Quandre Diggs.
Jammer's guy. Quandre Diggs. Yeah, there are so many. Gosh, it's so hard. Man, it's either it's either Jammer or Vasher has got to be my 1 and 2. Aaron Ross, I want to sneak in there as well, but if I've got to pick one, I got to go Quentin Jammer. I got to.
I think I might go Vasher and Jahdae Barron. Because I think Jahdae Barron does some things out of that group that the other guys don't. Like in run, guys, that guy was so good at fitting the run and getting downhill and blowing people up. Like that's why, like those other guys were, I think, probably better cover corners than he was. But as an all-around football player, I think Jahdae Barron might be the best out of that group, honestly.
I think that's fair. Michael Huff's another guy I think needs to be in the conversation as well. If we have to call that name into the conversation if we're talking about all-timers at cornerback in Texas for sure.
Yeah, I would throw him at safety. That's what I was going to say for safety. I would go Earl Thomas and Michael Huff, or Kenny Vaccaro's in the conversation, but I think he was actually a better NFL player than he was at Texas, honestly. So I mean, Earl Thomas is one of your safeties, period. Point blank. That's what he is. He's there. Then there's a discussion with Kenny Vaccaro, Michael Huff, Griffin as well. So we'll have to see.
It's hard. Yeah. Any of those, again, I can't argue with any of those guys. It's hard for me, but I think if I have to go gun to my head, it's probably Earl Thomas. And it's like Quandre Diggs is a guy who I think, again, when we talk about like how do you tell the story of the last quarter century, like Quandre Diggs is a guy who deserved to be on a much better football teams for how good he was for Texas. Like if you have Quandre Diggs on any of the teams for the last 5 years, he's still exactly, but he deserves that level of success with what he did for Texas in a down period too. It's wild.
No, 100%. And a guy that could have made this list that came to my mind, like he was our last true shutdown corner before Jade. If he would have just, not been dumb off the field, Holton Hill. Holton Hill had all the potential in the world of that, and he just threw it away because that guy he was complete shutdown that year. I mean, he was being comped as like a first-round pick in the NFL draft and just fizzled out. And I agree, Quandre Diggs might be the most underrated player of the Charlie Strong and Tom Herman era. Like of that era of football between those two head coaches, I think he's probably the most underrated player.
Yeah, it is. He's a guy who I like. He's not the kind of guy who would want it, but like he's a guy who deserves an honorary national championship ring if Texas ever wins one, because he was just that special of a player. He was one of the guys who, in an era where Texas didn't have a ton of pride, let's be real, like he came out and bled and sweated and gave everything for Texas in an era where they just weren't stinking good, man.
No, 100%. Kicker and punter. Unfortunately, he ruined his reputation, but our kicker is 1,000% Justin Tucker. And punter is 1,000% Michael Dixon.
Yeah, we have to have a conversation.
I don't. Especially, honestly, I think there's a better conversation about the kicker than there is punter. I mean, the punter won a freaking MVP of a bowl game because that's how damn good he was in that game.
Yeah, but I think I called Justin Tucker Aggie's Bane as a joke, but like I think like that, like what again when you talk about like what he did on the field and the story of like you cannot tell Texas football post 2000 without Justin Tucker's kick in College Station to send them off to the SEC with an L. I'm with you there.
Yeah, it'd be fun to have these teams and then, compare them to other all quarter century teams. I'm going to tell you right now, the best one is going to be Miami. I mean, you could just throw the 2001 Miami roster and that's their all quarter century team.
I mean, it's hard to, it is, we got Victor's asking for kick and punt return. Dajae Johnson is one.
I think Xavier Worthy for punt return, honestly.
Xavier Worthy gave me agita, man, returning punts. That dude just need to let stuff go over his head. Jordan Shipley is another one who was an ace punt returner for Texas. Aaron Ross was a good punt returner on that team as well.
Deshaun Jameson was pretty good.
Deshaun Jameson, I think, was absolutely one guy who he got robbed of a record, right? They called back several of his, and I'm pretty
2 or 3, in a year.
Yeah. I'm pretty pissed about that still.
And one of them, like they were, like 2 of them I know were 100% holds. One of them was not. I think the one was versus was West Virginia, and they shouldn't have called it. But yeah, he had it was going to be 5 or 6 in 1 year.
Yeah, he was on pace to set the record, and he had 3. If any of those had not been called back, he would have set the record. I'm pretty sure. You
know who's another guy kind of in the Holton Hill category? Reggie Hemphill Maps. That's another guy where I don't know what that, like he had that one Maryland game and a couple other games where he just, every time he touched the ball, he housed it or took a big play and then did something stupid and was off the team next year. So that was nice, but he had all the talent in the world.
And I don't think he landed anywhere, did he? Like, I think he was at Houston for about 16 seconds and then.
Yeah, he's had like some serious stuff off the field, I'm pretty sure. Like, I remember looking it up a couple years ago. He went somewhere, got kicked off their team, and then I don't think it's gone very well for him since, but like that guy was, super special.
Could have been the dude.
Yeah, for sure. But that does it for the all quarter century team. I mean, there's a lot of names that we probably even forgot that could have been in consideration, but definitely a stack list and very fun to go down, especially during the off season. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. We are here every Monday breaking it down for you. This was the 59th edition, which means next week is the 60th edition. So please join us for that. And then also, guys, use the Amazon link in the description. It costs nothing. All it does is put a little bit of change into Mark Rogers' pocket. And speaking of Mark Rogers, here he is.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the voice of college football.
Also, guys, we have a great website here at the Voice of College Football with articles being posted every day. So just go on Yahoo, Google, Bing, whatever search engine you use, type in the Voice of College Football and check us out over there. And even reach out if you guys wanted to join the network. If you know what you're talking about, we'll give you an interview and you could eventually write an article for us as well. So we really appreciate you guys joining us as always. And check us out every Monday again at 8 p.m. Eastern time. We will be here next Monday breaking it down for you. Also, check us out on Twitter, and that is Gerald's Blue Sky and Twitter right there, as well as his Longhorn Pod, which you can check out on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast, you can check it out, as well as the Voice of College Football. You can type us in and listen to us as well, and you can check out me right there on X or Twitter as well, so please give me a follow. And as always, guys, hook 'em, and thank you for joining us.
Hook 'em streaming.